Thank you. Good evening again, everybody. To this planning meeting, we have only 2 items on the agenda, but it's important that we study each closely, as you know. Okay. Is there something you'd like to? Oh, we have a problem. We have a problem. Oh, what online? Somebody can't
hear.
Oh.
I've been told it is working.
Oh, it's working. If we get another message, we'll. Oh, there's Tina.
Oh,
Tina can.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't hear.
One of my colleagues who's doing the YouTube is messaging her now to help her out. So
Oh, lovely. Okay. Help is coming. She can't hear, but hopefully. Right. Apologies for absence, please.
We've received no apologies, but I can see that Councillor Mackenzie Boyle and Councillor Zahiruddin are both online.
Lovely. Thank you. So full house. Lovely. So we've got 2 members online. No visiting members on this occasion. Okay. Minutes. To approve the correct record, as a correct record, the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of January. Does anybody have any concerns about those minutes? Have you checked what was put? No comments. Okay. I propose those are taken as a correct record.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Okay. Declarations of interest. Members are asked to declare any disclosable pecuniary or affected interest in respect of any matter to be considered at this meeting. Any member with a disclosable pecuniary interest in a matter should withdraw from the meeting when the matter is under consideration and should notify Democratic Services Officer in attendance that they are withdrawing as they have such an interest. If the disclosable pecuniary interest is not entered on the register of members' interests in the monitoring, then the monitoring officer must be notified of the interest within 28 days. Do we have anyone who... Councillor Mary Temperton, Councillor Donna Preston. Thank you.
Councillor Mary Temperton, as leader of the council, I have an interest in item 5.
Thank you. That's the cemetery, yes. Going to take Donna.
Councillor Donna Preston, I have an interest in item 5.
Thank you. Councillor Gareth-Barnard.
When I was previously a member of the executive, we took an in-principle decision to proceed with this. So I don't know whether, because I've had that historical involvement in this, because this has been going on for a few years, whether that is an issue or whether I just need to declare the fact that I had some previous interest in the process.
Thank you. Yes, I had such an interest, but it's a long time ago and things have changed a lot since then.
But the proposal coming forward in this case is exactly the same as the proposal that was being discussed 2 to 3 years ago.
How does that stand?
Through you, Chair, our legal officer is online and she may like to correct me, but my understanding would be that Councillor Barnard's interest is very similar to Councillor Mary Temperton's interest, despite the time lag. So my understanding would be that he also had an affected interest and it would be better to declare it and to leave the chamber at the time that the item is discussed. But I don't know if Jackie Woods online wants to make any further comment on that.
No, I don't have any further comment, thank you.
I was on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, I think, and discussed.
But you weren't making a decision.
But I wasn't making a decision, no. So I should be okay, I think, yeah. Oh, somebody's got their hand up? Tina. Tina can hear.
Yes, I can hear you, and I can
great.
see you. Yep. Just to say that I likewise have that affected interest, ma'am.
So a serious question is, anybody that was part of the council before, I presume that this discussion actually came before the council at the time. So it's a really difficult one because I don't know whether we actually took the decision, but I think we were discussing it and took it in principle. So I think we just need to bottom this out before we can proceed on this.
Through you, Chair, my understanding is that if you were part of the executive decision to proceed with it, then that gives you an affected interest.
Thank you.
Otherwise, that isn't the case.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, so we need to move 3 councillors out of the chamber for the moment, and we'll call you back as soon as we're done. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
do I log off or what?
No, you're okay. You weren't part of the decision-making people executive.
However, I was on the project.
I think I was on the overview and scrutiny as well, and I've been advised that that's okay. Oh, what's that? If you're on the... Yeah. Okay. Yes, you should log off if you're on the project, I'm advised.
I will.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
Thank you for your advice and guidance. Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you.
I'll return later.
Lovely, thank you. It's a complicated one. Longevity of these things, I suppose. Yeah, right. Shall we have the officer's report, please? Oh, urgent. Oh, I haven't asked for urgent items of business either. Any?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. We'll get there in the end. Right. It is item 5 now. Please, can we have the officer's report? Thank you.
Good evening, Chair. I'll just share my screen. This application is reported to the Planning Committee due to there being more than 5 objections, and this is a council-owned planning application. The application is considering the merits of the planning merits of the proposal and is separate to the final decision on whether the council proceeds with the proposal, which will be made by the Cabinet in April. Members are first directed to the supplementary report for updates on the application. I would also like to update members in respect of the Environment Agency's response. They have today further advised that conditions 17 and 18 recommended on the supplementary report would not be required. The applicant asked the Environment Agency to reconsider the data contained within the groundwater report submitted with the application, in light that the data shows the groundwater levels meet the Environment Agency's requirements. The Environment Agency has accepted this and now have said only condition 16 on the supplementary report is required, as more groundwater monitoring is not required to take place. Moving back to the application, planning permission is sought for the proposed change of use from a golf course to a cemetery with an internal access road. The location plan on the screen shows the site edged in red with the wider site highlighted in blue. The application site relates to part of Downshire Golf Complex, with the land currently used for a 9-hole pitch and putt course in this location here. The existing East Hampstead Park Cemetery lies to the east of the site in this location here. The extension to the cemetery would be accessed from within the existing cemetery by the formation of a new access in this location, which would require the removal of a small section of hedging here. This would then lead to a new access road which loops around the site, with traffic proposed to move in one direction. Parking is provided along the access road in these locations. A maintenance vehicular access is proposed from the existing golf club car park in this location, with public access restricted by bollards here. An access track is proposed from the existing golf club car park to the existing driving range in this location here. The existing trees on the site are retained in the layout, and those at the edges of the site, with additional planting proposed within the layout, and a natural woodland burial area in this location here, with additional tree planting proposed. The plan also shows an area for cremated remains in this location, and an area for Muslim grave plots in this location here. The photos on the screen show the existing pitch and putt course with the existing trees and hedgings to the boundaries. The further photos show the clubhouse for the existing golf course, which is to be retained and not included as part of the proposals. A further photo shows the existing golf driving range with the boundary which lies along the existing cemetery. And a further view of this boundary showing the existing netting which prevents balls going over. The further photos show a view of the existing cemetery and the access road within it, and a further view of where the access is proposed to go through the existing cemetery to the new extension, and a further view of the existing cemetery. I'll just put the site plan back on the screen. The site of the proposed cemetery falls within the countryside, where it is an accepted use under policy LP 35 of the local plan. The proposed cemetery is classified as open space of public value and is a passive form of open space, and replaces the existing pitch and putt, which is an active form of open space. The policies within the local plan and Bracknell Town Neighbourhood Plan consider the loss of open space and community facilities, but this proposal does not conflict with those policies, namely LP 44 and LP 45 and EV1 of the Bracknell Town Neighbourhood Plan, as the proposal doesn't result in the loss of open space, it proposes a different type. In connection with policy LP 44 and the loss of community facilities, the relevant part of the policy considers whether the development is for an alternative community use and whether the benefits clearly outweigh the loss. The proposal has an identified need for a cemetery, which is not disputed, so there's no conflict with these policies. The need for the cemetery has been set out by the applicant. The proposal would provide cemetery space for a further 25 to 30 years, and due to limited space available in Bracknell, it will cease from mid-2025. The implications of not having any burial space in Bracknell would mean residents would need to find burial space outside the borough, which will have an emotional impact on those left behind, and which could be costly due to the resulting double or treble the price. For certain faiths, burial is the only permitted option, and there is also individuals who specifically choose burial over cremation. There is no planning policy objection against the loss of pitch and putt use, in view that it is being replaced by an alternative open space use, and the policies of the local plan or neighbourhood plan do not require evidence to justify its loss. Sport England are a consultee on the application and have raised no objection to the application based on additional information provided by the applicant relating to the pitch and putt provision, and do not object in view that they consider the proposal would address the loss of open space in the National Planning Policy Framework. They have also considered the view of Golf England as part of their response. The Environment Agency have now responded on the application and have raised no objection, subject to one condition concerning the position of graves and the distance above the groundwater level they are required to be. The lead local flood authority have also been consulted in respect of surface water drainage and raised no objection to the application. The proposal is considered to recognise the intrinsic character and beauty of the countryside and would retain trees on the site and around the edges of the site, with only a small section of the existing hedging required to be removed to allow the access path through from the existing cemetery. The proposal has been considered by the Highway Authority, who have raised no objection on highway capacity or safety grounds, although an additional condition has been recommended on the supplementary report for the submission of a construction management plan. The application has addressed protected species and biodiversity net gain. In view of the above, the application is considered to comply with the policies of the local plan, and there are no material considerations that would weigh against the approval of the application. The proposal would provide much needed cemetery space within Bracknell. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the requirements set out on page 42 of the report, the conditions and recommendations within the supplementary report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, we have a public speaker, Mr. Price, I think. Would you like to come to the desk? Now, Mr. Price, I have to give you 3 minutes, which I'll time on here.
Thank you very much.
I will give a shout when it's 20 seconds left, but you carry on speaking, and then when I say stop, please stop.
Okay.
But I've yet to find the wretched timer. It's here somewhere. Oh, there we go. Okay. Stopwatch. Timer. Okay. Are you ready to begin? Is the... yeah. Okay. Ready, start.
Okay, well, first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity to speak in defence of the existing active open space, that being the pitch and part of Downshire Golf Course. It's a little strange to stand here, with 3 minutes to defend 50 years worth of history at that site. A history that has seen the growth of professional golfers, from school children into TV personalities and presenters. A space that has been used as people move through the latter years of life as support for Alzheimer's Society, for pensioners to continue to pursue a game that they can no longer pursue on the main course. But more importantly and more personally to me, it is the growth of the game of golf within children. Their ability to move through the academies and learning how to hit a ball on the driving range to what it actually means in practice when seeking to get the ball in a hole. You cannot learn to play a bunker shot from a rubber mat. You cannot see how a ball interacts on a green, on a driving range or on a computer screen. In an age where we are striving to keep our children away from electronic devices and to get them out in the open, to get them active in safe, secure spaces, this area of the golf course is of vital importance. By way of better description, we have children that have come through those academies that represent country, that represent county, and do a very fine job on behalf of our town and our county in presenting themselves in a polite, respectful, self-disciplined manner that no other facility in the area offers. When looking through the planning application, it mentions on many occasions suitable alternatives. There are no suitable alternatives. The 9 holes you see there represent about 500 yards of golf. The nearest at Billingbear, the shortest that plays is over 1,000 yards and over water. You can't just take a 6-7-year-old and put them out on the main course. There are speed requirements, there's pace of play, there is safety, and by removing this facility without replacement, you are removing the active enrichment of the children of this town and of this borough. So I would ask you again to really consider what it actually
20
means and
seconds.
has meant for the town and community. If this must go, a suitable replacement must be offered, and that is not contained within the current proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to stay there in case anyone
Oh,
would
I'd
like
love
to
to.
ask you a question of fact? Oh, I told you to stop. There we are. Do you have any questions for Mr. Price, please? No? And it's Naz there. Does he have anything? No?
No, thank you.
Thanks, Naz. No, that's it. Thank you very much
Thank you all.
for your contribution. That's really good. So, questions for the officer, please. Everything very clear? Councillor Virgo. Put your mic on, yeah.
I'm forgetting. Well, it's such a long time. Could I just ask Katie how far, because somebody asked that, there's a question, the burial space would now be from the clubhouse?
Through you, Chair. The clubhouse is in this location, if you can see my cursor on the screen.
Yeah.
And then there is proposed to be a hedge separating the clubhouse, and then the burial spaces are here. So
how far, sorry Katie, how far do you think that is in terms of metres? Do you think?
if you could please, thank you.
Through you, Chair. Measuring on the site plan, which appears to be at 1 to 500 scale, the separation between the edge of the clubhouse building and the closest grave appears to be 13 metres.
13 or 13?
Yeah. 13.13.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. The gentleman who spoke just a moment ago raised a comment with regards to alternative provision and the availability of that, and specifically, clearly there are other golfing facilities, numerous other golfing facilities even just within the borough. But I do take his point with regards to the sort of the different scale of provision. I'm just wondering if we have any information as to, how far would somebody have to travel to gain access to a sort of direct alternative provision that matches what is currently available.
Thank you. Would you like to?
Through you, Chair. In terms of the planning application, the policies of the local plan don't require assessment to be made against the loss of the pitch and part. So in terms of my assessment of the application, I haven't actually considered the alternative provision, as the policies haven't required me to do that, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Do you want to make a comment, Assistant Director? No?
Through you, Chair. Yes, I'm just endorsing what Katie said. I mean, in the report at 9.19, there are examples that have been provided by the applicant of alternative type facilities, but I take the point that you're making in terms of the exact provision of a pitch and putt, and we don't have that specific assessment.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Councillor
just
Smith,
to
yeah.
clarify then what the assistant directors, so the, just to make sure I've understood the point you're making, is that the planning policies do not require that alternative provision in this case, which is why that assessment hasn't been provided?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
So additional information was provided at the request of Sport England, and that's why it's detailed in the report as background information. But in terms of planning policy, there isn't that requirement to make that assessment. Thank you.
So, Sport England, given that information, raised no objection. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Thanks. Thanks very much. Anyone else got a question? I've had a million questions before, but I read and read and read, and I think all the answers were in there. But I think the most significant thing is that the cemetery is seen as open space of public value. Much as the golf courses, they will both be quiet places, but one will have people walking around hitting balls, and the other one is people walking gently around and just enjoying the quiet and the space, and perhaps sitting for a while with their erstwhile loved ones. So valuable both, but we do have other provision around within a few miles, and although it's not exactly the same, nothing can be. I wonder if there's. I wonder if there would be anything exactly the same anywhere anyway. I guess not. But the need is so great, and we haven't got any philanthropic landowners who are going to offer land for a cemetery, I guess. Do we have any of that sort of offer, do you know? That's irrelevant to planning though, isn't it?
Yes, I'm afraid that's not a planning matter. I don't have that information.
Okay. So, anybody else have a question at all? No. So, I propose that the recommendations on page 42, was it? As amended. Yeah, as amended on the supplementary report, with the correction, the latest information is just 16, not 17 and 18, yeah? So I propose that we accept that. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. All those in favour, please. Debate. Oh, beg your pardon. Oh dear. Debate. Yes. Comments then, please. Councillor Penfold.
I feel it is very, very sad to lose this beautiful piece of space. However, in view of the history of how long people have been looking for alternative sites, I can really see no alternative at the moment. The need is great for the cemetery extension and urgent. So in that case, I will be voting for it, reluctantly, but sadly. And I hope we can encourage other golf courses in the area perhaps to up their facilities of putting green. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think there's any members here who won't lament the loss of the golf facilities. Obviously a very long established facility that many residents will have used over the years. I'm not myself an avid golfer, but even I've been and used the driving range there on occasion. So it is very sad to be losing those facilities. I think it's really important to focus our considerations as this committee on the fact that the strategic decision about how the council wishes to use this site is not what's at question tonight. Our role this evening is to judge this application on the basis of planning policy. We are considering a planning application and judging it whether or not it is compliant with planning policy. We're not making that wider sort of strategic decision about whether or not this is the right thing to do with that land. And I think on that basis, the officers have been quite clear in their advice. As lamentable as that loss of the golfing facility is, it doesn't constitute a viable planning reason to refuse this. So on that basis, I think I'll be supporting this application. But I do very much sympathise with residents who obviously will be losing this facility. I think it's a very difficult decision for the council, particularly for the executive, to be making, having to balance essentially competing priorities, and unfortunately we can't serve all in this situation. But the new cemetery facility is obviously very much required and has been for some time. So I think it's a difficult decision. I'm glad I'm not the one making that specific decision, but I am sympathetic to residents who are leaving this facility. But on purely planning merits, I think we have to approve this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Virgo.
Thanks, Chairman. I am a slight golfer, actually, and I think it's very sad because, as the gentleman said, if you're playing golf, you've got to practice that, and you can't practice it on the main golf course, particularly if you're a child. So it is a very valuable piece of leisure. It does irk me a bit, actually, to be honest with you, because I think we can't keep gobbling up land like this because we just don't have it. I would like to have seen the council perhaps find a completely different way of doing this, and maybe it means that we've got to go to the continental side of things and and use graves that are deeper and pile people on top of each other. As much as it sounds a bit odd, they do it in France, they do it in Italy, and so on. I can't see another reason, because I think the council have now, got this into a corner, and we've been talking about this for a long, long time, and it will be regretful that I'll have to support it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Collins.
I'm not sure there's much more I can say. The loss of the pitch and putt is not good, and obviously it's a very emotive subject. But the cemetery is needed, and as colleagues have said, there does not appear to be an alternative location. The final decision rests with Cabinet. And I can't see any planning reasons why we can't approve this, so I will be supporting the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. I have to support the application based on the grounds. We've got to see the fact that the community in that community is growing, and there's going to be more and more need for burial space there. And I think in terms of the number of people using the pitch and putt as the number of people that are likely to be using the cemetery, the latter is the greater.
Thank you. Anyone else? Naz? No.
Nothing further to add than what my colleagues have already mentioned. So thanks.
Thank you. I should call you Councillor Zahuruddin, I'm sorry. So, in summary, we don't have much alternative on this one. We have to approve, I believe, because planning policy is very clear. However, as Councillor Collins mentioned, that the final say is with the Cabinet, and if any new piece of land that is suitable in short shrift comes up, perhaps they could consider something else. But for now, we have to, I think, approve this. So, all those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair, so the motion is carried.
Thank you. Yes, we'll better. Thank you. Someone will. How do we contact Tina as well? Call to order.
I've returned.
Oh,
Thank you,
right.
Madam Chair. Thanks.
Hello, hi. Thank you very much for attending. Welcome back, councillors. Okay, item number 6, 20 Annaford Place. Would the officer like to make the presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Will Rendell and I will be presenting this item this evening. This application is for the erection of a 2-storey side extension, front porch and demolition of an existing garage to create an open parking space. The application has been brought to Planning Committee as it has attracted more than 5 objections, and the Chair of Planning Committee has requested the application be reported to Planning Committee on the grounds of parking concerns. The existing site is a 2-storey dwelling with 3 bedrooms located on a corner plot. The existing garage that is proposed to be demolished is located within the garage block to the rear. The site is located within the settlement boundaries of Bracknell and is also located in fluvial flood zone 2 and partially with fluvial flood zone 3. The site is also a risk of surface water flooding. The site has extensive planning history. I can report today that 2 corrections are made to the planning history within the committee report. 1, an application today has been made valid for the same extensions proposed under this application without the proposed additional parking space. And 2, members' attention is drawn to paragraph 4.1 within the committee report, which states that the description of the previous application was proposed 2-storey side extension, front porch and demolition of existing garage to provide an open parking space. This is incorrect as the previous application did not include the open parking space. The proposed extensions are the same as those approved under the previous application. This application was approved in October 2024. There are 2 main differences between this application and the previous one. Firstly, the internal layout of the proposed extensions have been changed to include an uplift from 3 bedrooms to 4. And secondly, the inclusion is the inclusion of the garage within the rear parking court, which is supposed to be demolished to create an open parking space. There is currently no on-site parking available. As this is the current situation, the addition of a 4th bedroom would only require 1 additional parking space to comply with the uplift in bedrooms in accordance with the parking standard supplementary document. Members' attention is drawn to the fact that the demolition of this garage to create an open parking space is supported by policy TR4 of the Bracknell Town Neighbourhood Plan. It is noted that the existing garage is substandard and the proposed open parking space would be larger than the dimensions required under the parking SPD. Moreover, it's been demonstrated that this proposed space can be counted as an additional space, as the garage purchased separately from the main dwelling, as they have separate land registry titles. It is noted there is an objection from the Highway Authority based upon a shortfall parking and concerns regarding the access to the garage court to the rear based upon its width and visibility. As stated previously, only 1 additional parking space is required to be provided under the parking standards SPD, and the proposed space is sufficient in size. Therefore, it is not considered the Highway Authority's objection would warrant refusal on the grounds of lack of parking. Moreover, in terms of the access, the proposed parking space will be located just adjacent to the existing garage block, which currently provides parking both within and in front of the garages. As such, the proposed open parking space does not increase the number of parking spaces within the garage court, and is not considered this result in intensification of the use of the garage block, and therefore it is not considered to be an increase in highway safety risk. Conditions are recommended requiring signage to be installed showing a proposed open parking space that will be allocated to number 220 Anniford Place, the main dwelling. A further condition is also proposed preventing the extension from being occupied until the proposed parking space has been provided. Moreover, one additional condition has been recommended within the supplementary report for a construction transport management plan. This condition has been amended since the publication of the supplementary report to remove the requirement of a submission of hours of construction. Members will see here the wording of this additional condition that's been amended since the supplementary report. And hours of construction now forms part of a separate condition as shown on this slide. In regard to this pre-commencement condition, this has been agreed by the applicant. In terms of other considerations, no neighbouring amenity or design concerns are raised as set out within the committee report. A pre-commencement condition has been recommended and agreed by the applicant for a scheme for the disposal of surface water drainage to be submitted and approved by the local planning authority. The Lead Local Flood Authority have no objections subject to this condition being secured. In conclusion, it is recommended that full planning permission be granted, subject to conditions set out within section 11 of the committee report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for that report. Questions for the officer? Councillor Virgo.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. Could I just ask the highway officer why he came to that conclusion, to give a bit more meat into the bone on this one, please?
Through you, Chair. I have the Highway Authority's objection in front of me, so I can refer to that as I speak. The concerns over the access route through the garages related not just to the operation of the dwelling once constructed, but also the construction of the extension itself. And those concerns were that the access width down the central aisle of that garage block, particularly if you have vehicles parked in front of the garages, would be too narrow and would provide insufficient turning for construction traffic. So there was a construction part to the Highway Authority's response in terms of why that was an objection from the Highway Authority, as well as the additional bedroom creating demand for an additional parking space, which policy compliance-wise in terms of size, the planning officer has noted that the existing garage falls below our current parking standards size, where the surface parking space would comply. However, it was noted that the existing garages and forecourts are used for parking, and therefore there's a slight conflict in terms of whether those garages are in fact used for parking or not.
Thank you.
I'm grateful.
More questions? Oh, Tina. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Tell me, please, officer, thank you for your report. Are those garages private or are they RSLs?
From what I'm aware, they're a mixture, but the garage in question with this application has been purchased by the applicant.
Okay, but the ones next to them, are they private or are they owned, say, by ABRI?
ABRI doesn't even know which ones are private or not, actually. It's quite a mixture.
For you, Chair, I'm not aware who owns the garage next door, and I don't think it's relevant for planning matters.
It's not a planning matter, is it?
Well, can I just add to that?
Yeah.
Some years ago, when it belonged to Silver Homes were quite firm in their belief that when you buy a garage, you rent a garage, you rent the four walls and the roof. You don't rent the frontispiece. So if they are private garages, then the person who owns it, I assume, can park their car in front of it. But if it's the old silver, then you only rent roof and the four walls. So this is where the problem may arise if people want to park their car and can't.
Yeah, I must admit, I thought they had a firm rule that you're not supposed to park in front of the garage, and they could fine you or something.
Yeah, exactly. So it wouldn't matter very much then if there was talking about turning space. I'll go back and think of it again. I'll go back. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Officer, very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have a comment you wanted to make? No. Councillor Barnard.
Thank you very much. Quick question. We're talking about a new parking space being created next to the garage block. I know from another application a couple of years ago that we raised concerns that any use of that space could, sort of put a bit of a planning issue on the bigger site. Are we confident that this parking space wouldn't preclude any, future development work on the garage block? Because notwithstanding people not knowing who owns what, that there is quite a move to actually redevelop and work on those spaces. So I don't know what, in the past we said, hang on, this isn't sufficiently comprehensive, this doesn't weigh. Just want to be reassured that this is not a situation like that.
I can only say that the Abbury sold the garage to the applicant, knowing that it would be taken down. Assistant.
Through you, Chair. Yes, we have had confirmation that this garage is now in private ownership. There's a separate title associated with it. And just referring Councillor Barnard back, so at the last committee meeting we did have an application for the redevelopment of a garage court at Shepherd's Lane, and you'll recall that there was an issue there in terms of some of the garages had been sold off and some remained in Abbury's ownership. And obviously if we were looking at a point in the future, if we were looking at an application like that, we would be looking at what was happening in relation to the existing parking provision, but that wouldn't be a matter for the current application, because this is it's been demonstrated that this can now relate to the application site.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, who was first? Councillor Penfold, please.
Right. Is the back wall of the garages also the boundary of the gardens of the behind the garages?
Officer.
And as this garage doesn't back completely onto the property that they want, is that, how is it going to affect the neighbours, basically? Is their wall going to be damaged? Is there going to be a new wall built for them? Are things in their gardens secure, so to speak?
Let us, the officer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For you, Chair. There's two main points on that. Firstly, a condition is recommended requiring details of boundary treatment to be submitted. And secondly, an informative has been recommended as well, stating that this permission doesn't give the applicant right to construct any works not within land that's not in their ownership.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Who was next? Who's it? Mary? Councillor Temperton, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. My concern is how this thing is going to be, or how this development is going to be constructed. I understand a licence can be obtained, but if you look at where they can't come in from the front, because it's over a verge that is owned by Abbury and then across a paving, and there is a pathway beside the house, which is and they can't obstruct that either. So it's a really, really impossible access to the front. And if you go down the back, if this carriage is demolished, and so they have access, half the back wall, which will be demolished, is in the garden of the neighbour. So therefore, to get any access through that to building access is going on the neighbour's half, which was the wall. So I am worried about how this is going to happen. And if we have small access and small lorries, How do you get a small lorry bringing in one of those great big things that makes the extension of the roof, the apex of that? It just can't do that. So I'm really concerned how construction can go on here. And I really think also, if this is passed, we don't just say we mark the boundary with fences or gates, whatever, but we actually say the neighbour's wall must be replaced, because otherwise you're going to have all the list of the garages.
Sorry, Chair, is this a question? Because I know this is
sorry.
rather...
Asking the question then, my question is,
Yes.
how can this building be accessed for the construction work to be done?
Good question, thank you.
Through you, Chair.
Indirectly.
I think one point that I'd like to make in terms of difficulties in construction wouldn't be a valid reason for refusal on a planning application. That would be a matter that the applicant has to deal with. But what in the recommended condition that's on the supplementary report, it acknowledges that there will be construction difficulties, and it seeks to mitigate those as much as possible by requiring details from the applicant of the means of access to the for construction vehicles, and basically to look for details of the size of the construction vehicles to make sure that we can control that as best as possible.
Thank you.
Yes, that also addresses even the temporary details of enclosure for the space. Yeah. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is actually quite a deceptively technical situation, I think. I just want to make sure I'm fully tracking the logic and the reasoning, and then I have a particular question about the interpretation around the parking. So there's an approved application for an extension, pre-existing. This application doesn't change the external massing of that extension, but it does change the internal layout to create an extra bedroom, which is why there is then a requirement for an additional parking space. That being my understanding, and the Assistant Director is nodding, so I believe I've got that correct. I think what this all hinges on is whether the replacement of the existing garage could be interpreted as provision of an additional space, which we can debate in a moment. Could the officer just confirm that's correct? And also, could I just ask for clarification on the highways officer's view on that, as I understood that maybe wasn't entirely in alignment with the case officer's view?
Through you, Chair, your
Please.
interpretation there is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair,
Yeah.
from the Highway Authority's perspective, we have numerous situations through planning applications where we have garages that were built in a previous era, and whether or not we consider them to be parking spaces or not. And I think the question here is, are the garages in the block used for parking, even if they don't meet the current parking standards dimensions? And I don't think we have the evidence one way or the other as to whether these garages are used for parking or not. But what we can say is that the proposed demolition of the garage would create a surface parking space that meets the dimensions for a surface parking space within the parking standards SPD.
Thank you. Did you want to raise a question, Councillor Collins?
I think I was just going to ask for clarification that once the garage is demolished, we do have a full-size parking space in terms of the parking SPD.
Through you, Chair, yes, that's correct.
Councillor Smith again, please.
Thank you, Chair. Another question then in relation to the parking space. The officer mentioned that historically those are separate sites on the land registry. Can I just seek an explanation as to how we make sure that that space is protected? If that is the additional space that's been provided to justify the extra bedroom, how is that protected specifically in relation to that property in the future if they're not sort of the same land registry site?
Officer.
For you, Chair. So I think with land ownership, it's not really a planning matter in that sense. But while the owner of the house owns that parking space, there's a condition requiring signage showing that space can only be used by the owner of number or the occupant of number 20 Annaford Place.
Yeah, thank you. Follow
As a supplementary, so just to be clear that there's nothing from a planning perspective that would stop this going ahead, and then down the line the applicant could sell off that space to someone else and it wouldn't actually be available to the property in the future.
Through you, Chair, and I'll defer to Joe if necessary. My understanding is the planning conditions run with the land, and therefore if the planning condition applies to the entire red line, which includes the property and the garage to be parking space, then that planning condition would apply to both the property and the space. So if they were subdivided, it's irrelevant because the planning condition still applies.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard, sorry.
Right, so trying to take that forward, in theory, the applicant could sell that parking space as a separate piece of land, which would then mean that that parking space was no longer available, and we probably couldn't enforce him taking a wall down to reduce the number of bedrooms again. So is there something, and I'm sure I've seen it elsewhere, where there can be a condition that basically says that it cannot be sold separately or something like this? Because I think, you know, that's absolutely fundamental and key to this, because every bit of land has value. And let's say an application came along in the future to redevelop a garage block, suddenly that little piece of land becomes hugely valuable.
Comment?
Through you, Chair. As Andy has said, there is a condition that's recommended on the agenda, which is condition 4, that says that the space shall thereafter be kept available for the parking of motor vehicles at all times. We wouldn't have any kind of additional powers over that because the land is currently within the applicant's ownership, and it's the same with any other land. Any bit of land could be sold off. We don't control that, but what there would be a breach of that condition if that happened, and then obviously we'd look at the expediency of taking enforcement action in that instance.
Can I then ask a supplementary?
Yeah.
Without prejudice, what sort of enforcement action could we take if they just decided to flog the space to somebody else? I'm not saying that, you know, a specific thing, but in general terms, to say without prejudice, what sort of things could we do? Because I think it'd be pretty difficult to take any action, surely.
I think that's probably correct in terms of sort of land ownership issues, but I suppose the point that I was making really is that it's the same with any kind of land sale, is that we don't, as the planning authority, we can't control that.
Councillor Smith and then Councillor.
Thank you. Following from Councillor Barnard's point, I was wondering, would there be any possibility of amending the condition to require that provision, that ongoing provision of availability for parking, to be specific to that property? That would mean that there wouldn't be the risk that the space could be separated from the property in the future.
For you, Chair, I would refer to the Assistant Director on this one.
Thank you.
Yes, it strikes me that that would be a reasonable addition to the condition to say to be kept available for the parking of a motor vehicle in association with the host property, because that is the purpose of the parking spaces shown as part of this application. So that would seem to be a reasonable addition.
Thank you, Chair. If I could request that is added to the recommendation when we come to that.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor.
Chair, thanks. Is this not very unusual? Because I've been in this planning committee quite a long time, that someone can turn round and say, I have a parking place some distance from the house. And if that's the case, does this not open a whole pitfall of anybody saying, you know, I want an extension, but actually the parking space is 2 miles away? I mean, where's the reasonable regulation that says that, you know, it's agreeable?
Okay.
Because I've never seen this before.
Through you, Chair. Yes, in this instance, the parking space does immediately adjoin the curtilage of the property, but I would draw Councillor Virgo's attention to the planning history on this site. There was an application reference 22000549, which, from my recollection, and the case officer might like to confirm, but it was an application for an extension that would have created a 4-bedroom property, and an additional parking space was shown as part of that application, but it was remote from the property, and it was refused on that basis, the fact that the additional parking space provided wasn't reasonably available to serve that property. I don't know if the case officer wants to confirm that.
Through you, Chair, yes, I can confirm that was the case. That space is located over 200 metres away in a separate garage block, so that was a different situation that warranted refusal.
Could I just have a supplementary? Does that mean that it's really our discretion what we consider close and what we consider far, or is there regulation about this?
Through you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Yes, there wouldn't be anywhere that it specifies the distance, so it is a matter of planning judgment. But I would just confirm that obviously this parking space immediately joins the curtilage of the property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Collins.
Just to follow on from that, can you confirm that a gate is proposed into the rear of the property? That would seem to me to be the solution to this problem.
Through you, Chair, I can confirm on the submitted site plan that such a gate is indeed shown.
Thank you.
Supplementary then. Can we condition that? I think condition 6 talks about gates. Can we be specific about having a rear access to the property so that people aren't required to walk round, because we know they won't, it's too far.
For you, Chair, I'd refer this one to the Assistant Director.
Thank you.
Yes, as Councillor Collins says, condition 6 specifically requires the submission of the scheme of boundary treatment to be submitted to and approved by the local planning authority. We would therefore, in approving details pursuant to that condition, ensure that a gate was provided. And you'll also note that as part of that condition, it talks about the means of enclosure thereby approved being retained and maintained thereafter, and that would ensure that the gate was retained. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's really useful. Oh, Tina. Councillor Mackenzie Boyle.
Thank you. Moved on a bit.
We can't hear you.
You know?
Very faint. Very faint. Wonder what's happened.
Right,
I can hear you just about.
Okay, I'll shout. Probably better. We've actually moved on a bit, and it was a jocular thing.
Oh dear.
So we talk about BMG.
Hang on, we've got the technical people on it. We can't hear you.
It's already at max on that.
Oh dear, what's happened? Can you possibly type the question in?
No, don't worry. It was a jocular fashion, Mark. Don't worry.
It's no good.
Just don't worry.
Jamie's in communication. I think it may be more of a long thing. No, she's definitely typing.
Yeah.
Ah. Say again?
Don't worry.
Oh, we can hear you. Speak up and we can hear you. Something's happening.
Can we try again? What's going on? It was a jocular moment that we've lost, I'm afraid. We were talking about whether you can pick up a car parking space. Actually, no, you can have a car parking space some 2 miles away. So could it be rolled up into something called a PNG as we talk about a BNG? That was all. Parking net gain as against to biodiversity net gain.
Thank you for that.
Shall I take
Sorry,
that? Shall
sorry.
I take that as a question, Chair?
Please do.
Through you, Chair, whilst we've been talking, I've been looking at the street scene supplementary planning document, which does say in its summary section in the parking chapter 6, parking courts should be easily accessible.
Very handy, thank you. Can I ask if the construction traffic or construction traffic of a reasonable size, can they go in the? Could they fit in the garage area? Because I know there are areas where you could do 3-point turns, so they could turn, forward in and backward out, or.
For you, Chair. So the recommended additional condition that was on the presentation tonight, does include as part of it means of access for construction vehicles and details of size of construction vehicles to be used in the proposed access route. And as this is pre-commencement, they'd have to provide that information before any works were to commence.
Oh, great. Yes, of course. Thank you. So we don't know what they'll choose to do, but they've got to make sure we're happy with it before they start anything. Yeah. Councillor Temperton.
Can I just ask for confirmation then, please? This proposal has been accepted before, but then it was for 3-bedroom without this car park. So now the same thing is happening, but he's turning into a 4-bedroom, and therefore this extra space. So this extra space, it's all been agreed beforehand with this building as it was. It was just this extra space goes with the extra bedroom that he's building.
Assistant Director.
Through you, Chair, yes, to confirm that's correct. So the built form of the extension has previously been approved, but exactly as you say, the change with this application is that an additional space is provided, so the internal layout of that extension can include a 4th bedroom.
Thank you.
But just to supplement that, but obviously in terms of construction traffic, so there isn't a condition on the application for the 3-bedroom in terms of the construction traffic.
Councillor Frewer.
Yeah, just a quick question about the garage itself. When this garage is going to be demolished, can we sort of guarantee that it's not going to cause damage to the other garages in the block? Because they are sort of breeze block construction, aren't they, some of them? Can we guarantee that?
Councillor, Assistant Director.
Through you, Chair. Yes, I just draw Councillor Frewer's attention to informative 4 on the agenda, which relates to the Party Wall Act, because obviously there's a party wall between the garage, which is the subject of this application, and the adjoining garages. So this wouldn't be something that we would control as a matter of planning, but we've drawn the applicant's attention to the need for them to actually undertake all necessary works underneath that and notifications.
Thank you. Councillor Virgo.
Madam Chair, a little confused here. Because we are asking, if I understood this right, following Councillor Temperson's point, that because he wants to make an extra bedroom, he puts up a partition wall. Now, the first question I would ask is, he can do that anyway, can't he? Anyway, but let's put that aside. That's one question. But the next question, which puzzles me a lot, to be honest, we had a similar point down at London Road with all those houses of development. I can't remember what it's called. I'm sure someone can remember this. Next, in fact, my fellow councillor, Councillor Hayes, usually brings this point up.
Palm Hills, I think.
Sorry?
Palm Hills.
Yeah, Palm Hills, yes, exactly right. Thank you. And I seem to remember that the builder wanted to make studies in all of the, subject to the plan. This was an addition. And we made the point, I think, on the committee, that what's to stop making that study a bedroom? Now, I don't think we asked, and I think the answer to it on the night was that it wasn't necessary and they shouldn't have to find an extra parking space. But in this case, because the guy's been obvious and been honest and said he wants to make an extra bedroom, we have to find an extra parking space, and those don't seem to tally with me. I wonder if someone could give me an explanation.
Assistant Director, I think.
Yes, through you, Chair. Just in relation to the Palm Hills site, there was a lot of debate about the provision of studies, and you may recall there was a specific condition imposed on that condition, on that permission, to say that they should not be used as bedrooms. And there was a lot of work done at the time looking at the scale of the studies in those instances, and it was determined that because of their dimensions that they couldn't reasonably be used as bedrooms. And as I say, we also requested marketing details for those properties and also imposed a condition to say that they couldn't be used as bedrooms. This is a slightly different scenario in that the application is for a 4-bedroom property, and there is a requirement for an additional parking space to be provided. To Councillor Virgo's first point in terms of the partitions, he's absolutely correct that internal alterations once a property is built is not development. And so there is a scenario, and this is something that we do, potentially encounter, is that a building, a house, or an extension can be constructed, and then once it's fully constructed in accordance with the approved plans, it wouldn't be development requiring planning permission to make those changes, but it would require planning permission if they built it as a 4-bedroom dwelling at this point in time. And therefore, that's why an additional parking space is necessary at this stage.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Councillor Zahuruddin or Councillor Mackenzie Boyle online? No?
None from
No, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. That appears to be that. So it falls to me to propose that we accept the recommendation, the officer's recommendation, with the amendments from the page 56 of the agenda pack, plus the recommendations in the supplementary report.
And just as amended by the case officer of Erbally.
Yes, and as amended by the case office of Erbally, yeah. Sorry.
I'm happy to second.
Yep. Were you?
Well, I just wanted to ask a question about putting back that back wall that belongs to the neighbour when he finishes. I was stopped at the other one because it wasn't a question, but sorry. But I really think it's important that neighbour gets his wall.
Okay, you can state that in the debate then, yeah. So, debate. Who would like to begin? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. It's been quite an interesting discussion around this, and quite technical. I think a lot of this hinges on that question as to whether we really consider replacement of an existing, albeit not up to modern standards garage, but still an existing garage with a parking space as genuine provision of a new space, which I think is, clearly from the answers we've had from officers, I think their view is that it meets the letter of the law or letter of the rules. I'm certainly not convinced it meets the spirit of the rules, but it does appear to meet the letter of. I was very much torn by this. I think that the last point in the discussion there actually is probably the pertinent one, which will sway me ultimately to support this, which is that there is an entirely legal development path based upon the existing approval that the applicant could follow to create this 4-bedroom property, albeit a bit more circuitously, but they could still legally create the 4-bedroom property without relying upon the space. So I think it would be unreasonable, therefore, to refuse it on that basis. But I am concerned by that interpretation. That I think if we're requiring new spaces in the parking SPD, they should be genuine new spaces and not just replacing an existing garage and sort of getting around the rules because of very minute details there.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard, please.
Thank you. I've looked at this site carefully and I've heard everything that was said this evening, and I do have an ongoing concern about, the sustainability of this. And where I come from on this is that I'm not convinced or confident that this is actually genuinely providing a new additional parking space as has been set out. And I think the complexity of this, the issue around, the fact that there could be an alienation of this particular site down the line, suggests to me that on balance, and it is very much a subjective on balance, I cannot support this because I don't think this is sustainable or deliverable in the form that has been put forward. And, the fact that during this discussion we've also been adding in additional conditions and, tweaking and moving things generally suggests to me that we're sort of moving through this. But I respect and understand those that might take a different decision on this. But I'm just not convinced on highway grounds that this is sustainable or deliverable in the form said. And that's before we get to any other discussions, because I know things like construction, everything in the hand of that, and, provision of gates can be put in conditions. I just think fundamentally for me, it doesn't work, and it's trying to find a complex solution to a problem which actually, given the fact there's already extant permission for an extension, would suggest to me that there's a route forward anyway to enhance the living conditions in this property.
Thank you. Councillor Virgo.
Thank you, Chair. I must apologise. I didn't go to the site meeting on Saturday, but I did go and see it, like Councillor Barnard, myself, and had a walk around the site. When I looked at the site, I was extremely concerned, and I think Councillor Temperton made this point. I mean, I know they've got permission anyway to do some building work, which will also mean that they've got to have presumably a construction traffic plan to do that. But I would question that myself, because it's an extremely difficult site to get at for the reasons, Chair, you've made yourself. And also the roads in that area are very small because they weren't made for this kind of traffic we now have on our roads. And so what there seems to be is a lot of double traffic, people parking on pavements, and which makes it difficult for people to get about and so on. So while I think we've got to have some development, I think this is just too much, frankly. I mean, it's absolutely nonsense, in my view, that we would allow this house, a 4-bedroom house, to have one parking space, not even on the site. It's nonsense. I cannot support this. I think it's too much. I mean, he's very, very lucky, or she, to have fallen back on the fact that we've already given permission for quite considerable development, and that should take place. But I think to move it to 4-bedroomed, which is going to be how many people with cars and where they're going to park and all this, is just beyond the pale. So I'm really sorry, but I cannot possibly support this. Thank you. By the way, I should say, Chair, I've got a blue sheet as an alternative motion.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Councillor Mackenzie Boyle and then Councillor Collins. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you've gone quiet again. No, we can't get you. Now, what happened? We had this recent. There you are. We've got you.
You got it. Okay, great. I can't vote on this, obviously, but I've heard everybody's words and their thoughts on this. I know where I stand on this. I made my own site visit. I couldn't on the formal site visit, but did on my own. I know this area very well, and around Trumbull as well. I know what I would do, but I've heard everybody's thoughts, and I respect their thoughts. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Collins.
Well, I agree with Councillor Smith on this. It's not a great proposal, but I am persuaded that there is one additional parking space for this property, which is adjoining the rear of the property, and we have access through to the rear of the property, and therefore there isn't a long walk. We've already discussed that they could fall back on the previous application to develop a 3-bedroom property and then convert it to 4, which would then not have a parking space there because the garage is unusable. It looks as if it is subsiding. Well, it is subsiding. So I will be supporting this application.
Thank you. Councillor Temperton.
Well, I was totally against this application until I've heard that from planning it's already been agreed, really, and this man, not with the garage, okay, but the owner could actually turn that building into a 4-bedroom house with or without this area. And the area, and he's bought the garage, which is right actually accessible to it. But I am concerned, and I know there will be concerns about how he's going to do the construction and all the rest of it, but it's the construction, I think, is going to have to go over a neighbour's ground, and that concerns me completely. And also the back wall, when it's taken down, half of that back wall belongs to the neighbour. So I think it's not a fence, or it's an actual wall has to be built, because that neighbour at the bottom of his garden has a wall at the moment, and the wall is the back of all the other garages, and he needs that garage. And I just hope that the garage can be demolished without knocking everything else down, because I live in an area where this has happened and they go like dominoes.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Councillor Frewer.
Yeah, I mean, Councillor Temperton has just said what I was concerned about earlier. I've got 2 garages of my own, and I know that they're old, and if one is knocked down, you don't know what damage it could actually do to the other garages in the block. So yeah, I've got grave concerns about this myself.
Thank you. Councillor Penfold.
I have reservations too, but I have to agree with Councillor Collins. If they've had permission already, it's something I hadn't realised. There's no point in assuming that they will stick to the original plan for a few years to build just a 3-bedroomed house and then not convert it to 4. Regarding the neighbour's back wall, can that be rebuilt before they start at any construction?
We're through with questions, but
can that condition be put on of that?
There is a condition about.
I know there's a condition about the wall, but before construction.
They have to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that has to be presented to the council for agreement. Yeah. Anyone else? No? Okay. Well, I've had a good listen here. I don't know if this is going to come out in the right order, but the things that I've noted are that, first of all, I've known this area for many years, like Councillor Mackenzie Boyle, but perhaps longer, because I was the town councillor as well. That property in that position is very inaccessible, as you can see. The only way to get it with any sort of machinery is round the back through that garage space. And if the garage is there, that's going to be nigh on impossible. The gap in the back fence will be big enough to take a small digger in and so on. And I feel sure that they'll be able to manage that. But again, the construction, details about the construction has got to come back to us for that. Yes, he does have to work out with the neighbour what sort of back treatment, fence treatment. We don't know what sort they will choose, but I'm sure he will talk to the neighbour. They've been discussing things over the period of this, well, some years since this has been going on. And they know me, and I can help if they need to, talk through me. The parking round there is atrocious, but you're talking to me, who's the instigator of the residents' parking in Priestwood, Garth, and I know how awful it is, but that the extant position for that house is to have parking for 3 bedrooms. They only need 1 extra space, so that's actually covered. And as Councillor Smith said, they've got that previous application accepted, and they don't have a space. They could change it immediately, or I don't know how long. And I think looking at this with the changed, updated conditions, with more detail about the construction and the access and so on, I feel much more comfortable approving this than I would have done previously. So that said, I will support the approval of this recommendation. So can we take a vote? All those in favour of the recommendation with all the amendments we've had?
That's 7 in favour, Chair.
Thank you. Those against?
And that is 2 against.
Thank you. Any abstentions? We don't.
And 1 abstention, so the motion is carried.
Thank you very much. That's the end of our work tonight, but could you keep quiet while we go offline? Thank you very much for your attendance.